Whenever we hear of new terms and new trends, they can seem really intimidating and far out of reach from our current lives at first. I remember when I first came across the term minimalism, I rejected it because I thought it meant that you had to live in a really tiny home and that you could only wear one t-shirt on repeat. And you almost judge yourself if you feel like you can't fit in with that image. But when we think of these terms and the lifestyles that they embody, it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all. And this definitely applies to slow living. In a nutshell, it's all about having a slower approach to day-to-day life. And again, it's very easy to look at your own life and think that you're so far away from slow living and that is something that you could never adopt. But I actually think it's a very flexible mindset and that it can be adopted into anybody's day-to-day life, even someone who has loads going on. So in today's video, I want to share what slow living is not. Usually the meaning is in the name, but not really in this case, because while slow living is about living more slowly, it's not necessarily about doing everything more slowly. In fact, when we talk about slow living, it's really about finding a pace that suits us for the right situation. Being slow means that you control the rhythms of your own life. You decide how fast you have to go in any given context. If today I want to go fast, I go fast. If tomorrow I want to go slow, I go slow. What we are fighting for is the right to determine our own tempos. I love that slow living doesn't actually mean being slow, because there are days where I do like to fill my day with many things, and then there are also days where I want to fill my day with nothing. I don't want to be slow with all of the things that I do, but there are definitely moments in my day-to-day life that I really love to savor, like eating, drinking, spending time with my family, enjoying a drive, and walking hand in hand with my partner. You wouldn't really associate the term slow living with someone who's successful, but slow living doesn't fight against productivity, it fights against busyness. If anything, I think slow living actually favours productivity's true meaning, because it's about spending the time on the things that are important and spending less time on the things which aren't important. And surely that's what productivity is all about. We try to be productive, to do things efficiently so that we can make more time for what matters. And that's what I think that we should all be striving for. I don't want to be productive so I can fill my time with more and more work. I want to be productive so I can get the things that I want to do done, but also make time for rest and play. So I personally think that slow living goes hand in hand with being productive. And it's something that I always have to remind myself of when I look at my YouTube channel and wonder whether it's normal to talk about slow living whilst you're also talking about productivity. Charles Darwin described himself as a slow thinker. Einstein famously sat in his office, gazing into the middle distance for hours on end. In the intellectual world and the arts, people have always understood the power of looking slowly at the big picture. Technology is super fast, so it's very easy to think that slow living means not using your devices. But I think slow living just encourages us to have a healthy approaches on how we use our devices. It's not about cutting it out altogether, but it's about having a more intentional mindset when we do use them. So it's not about being on every single social media platform because you feel that you have to, but choosing social media platforms which actually make you happy. It's not about following loads of social media accounts because they're popular and everyone else follows them, but thinking about whether you actually want to interact with that account. It's not about posting everything in your life for validation, but choosing what you actually want to post. We can very easily become slaves to our phone and to technology when we rely on it for everything, when we use it for entertainment for every moment of boredom or stillness, or when we mindlessly scroll through social media without even thinking. Slow living just encourages more self-awareness when we are using technology, to consider when you want to use it, how you want to use it, and why you want to use it. Slow living provides an opportunity to step back, pay attention, and question the ways we use technology, to recalibrate our relationship with a constantly switched on, logged in world. When I first came across the term slow living, I was confused about how it compared to simple living and minimalism. And whilst it is easy to think that the two go hand in hand because to some extent they do encourage simplicity and this idea of less is more, but I think slow living is more about time. It's where we don't feel like we're rushing, it's where we don't feel like we're missing out on our own lives. And it's about actively trying to enjoy our day to day. Whereas I think minimalism is more about material items. So you could be someone who has a million belongings, things. You have loads of shoes, loads of handbags, and whatever else. But if you're also someone who spends time doing the things that really matter to you, and you do live a life with intention, then whilst you may not see yourself as a minimalist, I would say that you're still the embodiment of what slow living is really about. Slow living isn't about determining how little we can live with, it's about working out what we simply can't live without. There's a lot of terms under slow living. So for example, there's slow food, which encourages cooking from scratch, using local produce and eating seasonally. There's slow fashion, which looks at sustainability and quality over quantity. And there's also slow travel, which focuses on culture rather than just visiting tourist hotspots. So it's really easy to listen to these terms and think that you can't have this sort of lifestyle because you don't fit in with these things. It's also really easy to judge yourself for not doing these things. And it's easy to think that these are things that you have to do in today's world to be accepted and to be a good person. But the essence of slow living, at least in my opinion, is about finding the things that truly matter to you and making the time for it. So if you don't really enjoy food and cooking, there's probably no point spending ages on cooking from scratch because you probably won't enjoy it. Slow living is more of saying yes to some things and saying no to other things. It's about finding the right balance for yourself. So anyone who has a slow living lifestyle is going to look completely different to somebody else with a slow living lifestyle. Very much in the same way that somebody who is a minimalist looks completely different to another minimalist. Slow living is a curious mix of being prepared and being prepared to let go, caring more and caring less, saying yes and saying no, being present and walking away, doing the important things and forgetting those that aren't. Like with so many things that we see on social media, they often come with an aesthetic. So for slow living, this is often washed out neutrals, nature, cups of tea, and growing your own food. And so it's so easy to think that slow living is easier when you're in the countryside or on the beach versus being in a city. But slow living isn't an aesthetic and it doesn't have any requirements, it's a mindset. So for example, you could be someone who is living in Bali, but you're someone who constantly rushes, who is really busy on things that you don't even know why you're doing and you're constantly stressed. Or you could be someone who's in New York, but you're really mindful, really self-aware, and have a great balance. Living in a city isn't synonymous with being busy. Although I do think that when you live in a city, there is more pressure to be busy. But anyone can make that choice to consciously slow down and to have self-awareness with their own time, no matter where you live or what your life looks like. How your life feels is more important than how it looks. So I really hope that this video shows you that slow living is something that anyone, including you, can embrace in your day-to-day life. There's no set rules for what slow living really is. It's just about choosing how to spend your time and making time for what makes you feel fulfilled and happy, which I think deep down is something that we're all looking for. So stay intentional and go create some magic.